Hello, today I'm going to be making a little tote market bag type thing. I did cut this out a little while ago, but I was waiting on that lace like I said in my previous video. It's a little bit warped, this tape measure, but close enough. 14 approximately, a piece of fabric 28 inches long, and I have folded it in half. So it's 28 inches by 13 inches. And like I said, I have folded it in half. This is just a bit of old tablecloth fabric that I thought would be nice. And I have put a lightweight iron-on interfacing on the other side. Just because the fabric was really quite soft, I wanted just a little bit of stability to it, but not too much. So I have that. I also have some plain calico of the same size, and that's going to be the inside of my bag. And all I'm going to do first up is sew down each side. I'm going to put the right sides together. So that's my fabric. I'm just going to put the right sides together and sew down both sides so the fold is on the bottom of the bag. And I will do the same for this. There's my fold. I will just sew up one side and up the other side as well, and then I will be back. Alright, so I've done that, and then I realised once I got it in the light that I left my blue thread in the sewing machine, but because it's all going to be turned the other way around, like that way, it won't be noticeable, so I'm not going to worry about that. It's only a very pale blue, but yeah, I should have changed that first, but I didn't. So okay, so what I want is probably one and a quarter, I'm thinking. I just need to make myself like a 1 1/4 inch square long. Okay. And what I want to do, I'm not going to use that, I'll use a different pencil, is my camera. The Gorilla Grip I use is getting very loose, so I don't want to play around with it too much. So that's a 1 1/4 inch square. I'm going to put that right on the fold down the bottom and line it up with the sewing line and just draw a 1 1/4 inch square there on that corner, and the same on this corner. So putting the cardboard on the fold and against the sewing line, not on the outside, against the sewing line, and just tracing around it like that. Actually, I'll put like 1 1/4 so I don't forget. And I'm going to do the same on this piece here as well, in this corner, exactly the same. And then I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to cut it out on all of where I've just drawn those squares, and then I'll be back. Okay, now that I've cut those little squares out on all the corners, I'm just going to put my hand inside. See, here's my hand, and I'm going to flatten that out. So it's like that. Try not to stretch it too much because you don't want these threads coming undone. I'm going to put it just like that. And put a pin in there and sew across there. So I'm going to sew straight across the corner there. And this is the other one, so I will just straighten it out without stretching this seam too much. And I will like that. Like that. And just for those that may want to know, all the seams I make are approximately 1/2 inch. No, actually they're not. They're just over 1/4 inch. Probably about... Okay, so I will do that and I will be back. I will do that on the other piece as well. Okay, so they're all done. Just trimming off the loose threads. As you can see. Now, of course, if you want a bigger bag, then like a wider bag or a longer bag, you would make it to suit what you want. So now when you pull it through the other way, you have a nice little base to your bottom, and it's, you know, that 1 1/4 probably is like 2.5 inches, I guess. Let's have a look. Oop, 3.5. Almost 3.5 inch gusset, which is, you know, I could have made it smaller, but that's okay. So that's what it looks like. You've got your little bottom part of your bag here, and there's the rest of the bag here. And you do now we're going to do the ruffles. Now, for my ruffles, I've got this lovely wide lace from Luscious laces, and it sells a lot of these kinds of laces, and I'm going to be using that. I've also got, quite some time ago, I bought a top at the op shop or thrift store, and the front, the garment, you've got a neck like that. I'll show you it. There's the shoulders of the neck, but the garment came like this, down like that, and it had a ruffle all the way along the edge of the top, and the lower it got, the wider the ruffle was. I'll just show you that. So there's the neckline. As it got down, this ruffle got wider, and I have taken it off, and I want to use that. And so it, as you can see here, that part there is not as wide as that part there, you see, but that's okay because there were two sides to the shirt. So what I'm going to do, I've got the pieces here, and I thought, well, that's the wide part there, and I need to find the other wide part, which I think is this one here. By the look of it, that should be the same width. That's the same width there. So I'm going to join those two wide parts. There, I'll just put a pin in for the moment. Is it out of reach? So that will be one ruffle of the bag, so I'll put that to the side, and then I want another layer, but I need the pieces because that's a narrow piece, so those two go together, and these two will go together. I think that's that, isn't it? No, see how they're a different shape completely? I must have put the wrong one on here. Let's have a look. That's a wide, and okay, that one, see how that one's more curved, I think, like that perhaps. Yeah, okay, so these two will go together on the wider end. That looks better. Okay. So those two will go together at the wider end. I need to join them at the wider end. And then these two will go together. These are pretty even actually, I think. This one's just slightly wider. So those two will go together, and then we have these two, which is where it would have been up around the neck, and they will go together also. What is that? I feel that how am I going to join that? It doesn't really matter, does it? I don't know. Oh, I see. That goes like that. That's it. And that goes like that. So I want those two wide ends. Joining together, and there will be probably little offcuts, but that's okay because I can use those in journals and things like that, but it's important to get like at least one side equal. So I'm just going to sew all of those parts together, and then I will be back. Okay, so they have been sewn together. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to be putting the ruffle on here, and I'm going to start at the bottom of the bag, and I want, okay, so there's the seam that I just sewed together. I want that at the side of the bag, but I need to kind of just put my bag up like that a bit because I don't want it so low that it's all dragging on the ground. Obviously the longer end will be a bit longer, and that's okay, but I don't want it all on. So I need to, because I want to sew it straight across like that. This end will be higher than that end. That way this end will kind of hang down a bit lower, but I don't want it like, you know, it's meant to be fun, so you still want some sort of flounce hanging on the ground. So I'm thinking about that. Looks okay. How are we going to do this? Okay, if I measure this side to here. Okay, so I want it about, let's have a look, it's about 5 inches up, maybe 4.5. 4.5 inches up I want to be sewing this on. And there's a reason I sewed this together before putting this on, because I don't want the ruffle trapped inside the bag. Do you know, if you know what I mean? I don't want it, I don't want the edges caught in there. I want it to kind of look nice. So 4.5 we said, didn't we? Maybe I'll just put a couple of little marks on there so I know where that is. 4.5 is here, because that will be covered up anyway. Hold the points of your seam and do it from that crease where you want it. So about there. About there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't want it too crooked as well, so okay. There. There. And up there. Okay. So finding the middle, because I want that longest part there. Make sure you've got the outside, not that you'll see a lot of that, but so I'm wanting it here. There and there. That looks about right. There. And here. And now I might just go back and do the other side, pin the other side into place. That there. Now, see, the whole idea was not to catch the ruffles. I want them free flowing, so if that goes there like that and comes over like that, like that. So what's that? About 1.5 inches, so I'm just going to sew those ends in 1.5 inches. Should have perhaps measured it properly to start with. What's that? Is that right? Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll do that on the next one properly. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I sewed those two end pieces together there. I'll just trim that up. And that will have to, so maybe the next time around I'll do that first. That should fit nicely around. Hope. Up. And there, like that. And I can just sew that in place. That looks alright. Let's have a look. If I put another pin in there. Right. That looks about right. Yes. And now with this one, because that one goes on an angle and that's the way I like it, this one has a right and wrong. The side, it has a little edge on it there. I'm actually, instead of starting at the side, because I don't want a gappy piece at the side, let me just see where the next piece will come in. The long side, and I've flipped it over, is there, so I want this long, although this is pretty much the same all the way across this one. Right, that needs to come down like that or I won't see it. And then this one will come up like that, if you see what I mean. And then the next layer will be like that. And then the top layer is where it will look kind of cute because it does have a wide, see, that's the wider side and that's the narrow side there. And that it will kind of go like that so that you only see like an angle of this lace. Maybe I'll angle this one a bit more as well. Let's have a look. That's the long angle, so we want the long angle like coming down on that side perhaps. A bit more there. And then that one across. And then that one will go at the top like that. How pretty is that? Look how soft and flouncy that looks. So let me just tell you that again before I sew it so it's not confusing. That's our top layer, narrow at one side, going wider here. Now if you didn't have a ruffle that was like that, you could just angle it and sew it on an angle, which would work really well. So that's our top part. Then we're going to have a lace. And then this is our second one, but as you can see, there's not a huge difference on the size of this. And I'm wondering whether I might cut it at more of an angle because see how the border, it's pretty much even on both sides. Or I could just have it straight and have that sat lower. How much room have we got here? Because that's definitely longer on, I'll turn it over, it's definitely longer on this side, which is nice. Sits like that. So we'll sew that on. And that one will go directly over the top. I could almost sew them at the same time. which is probably what I will do. Starting in the center here, so that the ends, when I come to joining the ends, instead of having to muck around, I can just like overlap it like that and it won't really be noticeable. So I will go do that and we'll see what that looks like. Okay. So just get those ends on. And I zigzagged. I used a zigzag stitch to sew that on. And like I said, I just okay, so that's the first layer like that done. So now I can work from there. Well, it's not exactly straight, but it's okay because it won't be really noticeable once it's done. That's not the right one. Where's the other piece gone? Yeah, okay. So now we are going to use this one. I feel that that's too wide though. I think I'd prefer it like that. I do. I think that's what I'd prefer. I think I'm going to trim that down. I just think it's too far too wide up this end. I don't mind that end, but it has to have a smaller end to it. So it's all trial and error. This could it could turn out terrible. So okay, so we want to keep the width there, but not here. We want this a bit more narrow, so let's just go like that. Keep our scraps, and I'm thinking that will probably work. I will have to kind of gather that in a little bit as I attach it to the bag. Alright, so that's our wider end, and we want, see, that's how I kind of want it, so that I see this border of lace here. Alright, so do we need it? We do want it a little bit gathered, don't we? So that is far too wide though. So I'm going to sew these ends together, but I'm going to come in about 1.5 inches like I did last time. So it's not too big. Trim, and then attach and sew that on, but we want to make sure we've got the right side showing, so like that. So that's the long side. We want the long side on the opposite side this time. And like I said, see how wide that is? I will kind of gather that in a bit, I think, as I go along, to give it a bit more fullness. So if I get my, get in there. Alright, if I match my seams up, I want it high enough up here so I get to see this lace. So if I put that here, and that will be there, I'm going to put that about about 3 inches higher than this. Let's get a little pencil again. So from the sewing line perhaps, so there. This wasn't completely straight, so that's okay. About there. About there. About there. Okay, let's put that on and have a look. Oops, ended up taking it off, didn't I? Oh well. So once again, looking for those measurements and lining that seam up with there, like that. And like I said before, I don't want it straight. I'm going to kind of gather it a bit as I go along, so I'll just leave extra fabric in there. Put that like that. I want there's 3 seams here, but that middle one I want there, so it's even. And that way, so there's ruffled, you know, gathering space there, there's gathering space there as well. And then I'll do the same on the back here. Kind of, okay, that's about halfway. Put that about there. That way this all can be gathered up as well. Like that. And maybe a bit more there. Molly. Kind of that. Goes like that, and that goes like that, and that goes like that. Okay. Okay. So I might just run a large stitch around that and then come back and put the lace over the top of it, because I've got to do a little bit of, you know, scrunching in there as well. So once I've done that, I'll sew that on, then I'll sew this on just like I did here, and then I'll be back. Okay. Okay, so that's done. So there's our bottom layer, there's our second layer, there's our third layer here, this is our next layer, and we need to be putting our top layer on now, which will be this one that goes to a narrow edge. So that will go like that. What I was thinking, I'd like this a bit puffier. I was thinking I may, like it doesn't have to be everywhere, but I may, what is the end of it here? I may just put in another layer around like there, just that portion of it on that side, and then have that coming up, so it's got like two ruffled layers just there, not all the way around because I don't have enough to go all the way around. Have two ruffled layers there, and then, oh actually not there, there, because it's going that way now, because the long end's down here, then that's the longer end, and now that's the longer end. So I kind of want it going like that, and just having maybe a double ruffle in this part here. When it stands up, it actually looks a bit better than when it's laying down. And then this little bit here, maybe also put a, add another little bit where you can see it more, like just there, you see, and that way it's like that, and it's got lots of ruffle, and then that comes out of it. So that's what I was thinking, where it's viewable, having just a double ruffle of this. So that's what I'm going to do, but I won't do that until the end because I want to make sure I've got enough. I don't want to run out of this before I get to the top, because I need to, so we're putting, where does it go? Okay, so this part is going here like that, and it doesn't look like I need to trim that at all. So that goes there like that. See, looks pretty and feminine, doesn't it? And then I've got this, that's got to still have a hem over the edge like that, but I've got, where's that other one? Oh, this one, this double ruffle that I was waiting on to go there around the top. But I'm thinking before I put that on, I'll put that there like that. Yeah. Put that there. Or is that too much? Let me, oh, that's already, oh no, it's not sewn on yet, is it? I could have that higher. Not too high though, but I'll put an extra ruffle in there. I can have that higher, and I can have this along the top like that. I think so. And then that, it will kind of go like that. Is that too much to have that? That would be alright maybe, to have a double ruffle at the top and a flower. Okay, alright, So I'm going to sew this one on across there. I'm going to add a double piece here. I'm going to add a double piece here, which is just an extra piece of these. And then I'm going to come back and put that there, and maybe just slit it in half and put a double ruffle under it. I don't want to waste it because I can't get any more of that one. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll be back. Alright, so this is what we have. We have our long layer that was first. We have one layer of lace, two layers of lace, then we have this layer, and then we have two layers of the lace again, and then we have this layer, and then I cut this trim in half and put a single layer across the top there. And I'm not liking that bright colour against this very much, so this is, I kind of wanted that like that. The end will fold over a bit, but it looks a bit bright. So I kind of trying to work out what to do here, and I have this, and it's not quite as bright as that. It's a vintage satin. Now the first piece of this roll is a bit not very good looking, but the rest of the roll is quite nice, and I'm thinking if I put that there, like that, just make sure you can see, and then get this and have that over there. I wonder, I'm not sure if I have it would be nice if I had a little bit of ribbon, but I don't have huge amounts of ribbon, but I do have okay, I have that one. I think that one's oatmeal, and this one is sandstone beige. What do you think? If I was to maybe let's get us a proper needle or something. Okay, let's have a look. I don't know. I don't know what it will look like. Like that. It's not very noticeable, that colour, is it? As much as I like it, I think it just blends. Oh, did it the wrong way. Blends right in. Maybe we'll try this one here. This one's sandstone beige. These are from Luscious Laces. Okay, let's just trim that properly, shall we? Let's see if that looks a little bit better. Is that too dark? No, I kind of like the contrast, to be honest. And I'm thinking, I like the satin behind it. It just gives it a bit of shine. And if I put this through, and I'm not going to have it all straight, I like it like runched like that, then I can make a flower and incorporate a bit of this colour in it as well. So I think that's how I'm going to do it, seeing as that's pretty much the only ribbon I have. I better decide how much of this I need. Cut a little bit extra. And go through and thread this and sew this onto there. Just a straight stitch there and a straight stitch there. That way I can, this will go over it like that and finish the top of it off a bit. And then we'll have to make a flower or something, won't we? Okay, so I will do that and I will be back. All right, so that is done. That's my layer of this. Then I have a single layer of the of this trim here. I slit it down the middle. I sewed a single layer. Then I put the satin ribbon on, and then I put the other side of the single layer on there. I just like, it's gone up about almost half an inch, and I sewed the other half of it in. So I used one half, put the satin down, and then used the other half and sewed it on. And then I've put the double ruffle on and I've sewn that on as well. You can sort of see by the sewing on the inside what I've done. So there's quite a lot of stitching there. And now I have to put my lining in. And I need to decide whether I want my handles inserting in there now, or whether I want to attach them at the end. And I kind of like the idea of attaching them at the end because you can sew them a little bit further down, a bit more stable, which is what I might do. That's how I did the blue bag I made, and I kind of like this, how that felt. Now, because there's no seam at the bottom of my bag, I'm going to leave an opening at the top of my bag. So this is the lining we made, and I'm just going to put that pretty bag inside the lining bag like that, and I'm going to get my side seams, and I want to be careful that I'm not going to catch that ruffle in there, so I want to bend it down. I'm going to get my side seams here, and I'm going to match them up and put a pin there like that on that side seam. And the exact same thing on the other side. Get the side seam here and match that up. Let's just push that in a bit so it doesn't keep popping up. And get a pin and put that there. So you've got your side seams attached, keeping that ruffle down. there we go. And now I just need to sew that. Where's the back? Okay, this is the back. So what I'll do is I will pin like that, and I will put this pin here like that, because I want to leave a nice decent size gap there so I can turn it through. So I'm going to very carefully sew and make sure I don't catch my lace ruffle as I go around, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've sewn all that. I've left my gap at the top there, and now now we need to turn it through and hope we didn't catch anything. Just be gentle turning it through. You don't want to rip your seams or tear any of the lace. They generally pull through quite easily without too much tugging. It's just a matter of maneuvering it through the hole, that's all. And once the ruffly part is out, then you just give it a bit of a shake, and the rest you can just pop your hand in and turn that through, and then that goes inside of that, like that. And there's our hole there that we will be sewing up. Let me just give it a shake. That usually works better than anything else. And there's our bag, like that. Our bottom's in there. Now you can put a false bottom in there as well. That's really quite simple to do. So just, if you get, just get those corners in with the other corners, and that will be all right. That is a ruffled bag. Okay, so here we need to just press those down. Sometimes they stretch out a little bit when you're turning things through. That's why you've got to be careful, especially this calico. It does tend to, stretch out a bit if you're not careful. And that will be hand stitched probably in place so that I can make sure it all fits in there properly. Just need to take my jumper off. It's getting that is that. Let's have a look. I think it will look very pretty as a shoulder bag. Now I need a nice flower here because that's where I've joined. There's some threads that need cutting off. That's where I joined the satin. There's a little bit of a gap, so that's where I will put the flower. Now, do I just want like that, or do I want, that's what I'll have to work out. Of course, if you had a canvas bag, you could just decorate a canvas bag, but I didn't have one, so do the next best thing and make one. I do like the way it just spreads out at the bottom there. I think that's ever so pretty. It's like a little skirt. It's quite pretty. So I have some I made the blue bag handles out of canvas. I like the way that looks, so maybe I will use that. Now, to make a false bottom in there, that's quite a good size bag actually. It's quite tall. What I usually do is get some plastic, like, you know, your, what are they called? I don't know if I've got one here. You know, like your document folders, they're made out of that thick plastic. You can use that. Or you could use, sometimes green bags come with their own, like, black plastic bottom. You can use that and just cover it. Just something sturdy. It could even be out of cardboard. It could be out of cardboard as well. And all you have to do is insert that into the bottom. Not that it really needs it, but sometimes they do. Okay, I'm going to sew this together. I'm just going to use a, what is it? Oh, that's got blue thread in it. I'll go and thread a needle. I'll be back. Okay, I have a double thread on there. I'm just going to bit thick, this needle, so I hope it's going to sew for me. Alright, so I'm just going to like invisibly stitch this on, and it's just, this is a tough old needle, this one. These little brown bits, it's from, I keep banging the top of my shelf, and it's a really old desk, and it's, I think it's made out of chipboard, and so sometimes some of the little bits flake off, so that's what those little tiny brown bits are. So you just go in one side, like that, and catch a couple of, it's a thick needle, a couple of threads on this side here. Sorry about my hands. And that's all I'm going to do. Once again, you go in through there, out, just catch a couple of threads and pull that, and that's what that will look like. And once I'm done, like, that part there can be cut off because we knotted it further up. And so it's just, I think it's a slip stitch. I don't know all the names of particular stitches, I just do things. I wasn't formally trained in sewing and things like that, so I kind of just do what I do and hope it works out, and most of the time things work out, thank goodness, but not always. So yeah, it's nice when something works out, isn't it? It really is. Okay, so I will just do that to the end, and then that will close that up, and then we'll find some straps. And you know, you can just, if you rub that a bit like that, the stitches tend to disappear into themselves. Okay, so I've got this canvas strapping that was sent to me a long time ago by Jude Young. Thank you, Jude. And I've cut two pieces that I am hoping will be the right length. My daughter's got a canvas bag, just an old one, and I just sort of looked at the length that were on those, so I'm hoping that's right. What I'm going to do on the ends though is I'm going to just turn it up about that much. What that is 1.5 inches. I'm going to turn it up 1.5 inches and like sew it there, and then the same and sew it like that. I hope that will look alright. I'll pin it first. I'll pin it first and see what it looks like. Okay, so I've positioned them, but I'm not sure whether just to have them like that or whether to put a like that over it. Or is that going a little bit too far? I mean, it is just a, you know, tote bag, isn't it? I don't know. That's pretty. That one's not as shiny. Maybe that would work better because it's not quite as shiny. Looks a little bit more like I'm not going to thread ribbon through it. I kind of like this the way it is. This is a vintage one. It is slightly stained, but that's okay. I don't mind that. Well, there's this. This is really pretty, but it might be too white. I think that one is too white. These are all some of the lovely trims that Lynn Harris sent to me. That might work, because that's kind of that colour, isn't it? It's whether I've got enough of it though. That's really pretty, isn't it? I like that. That might work if I've got enough of it though. That's really quite pretty. I don't know. Let's have a look. Just make more work for myself, don't I? I don't think there's enough, which is a shame because I kind of like that. I'd need twice that, and I've only got, I'm a little bit short, like that, but that was taking it from the inside. I wonder if there's no more. It's only a small piece. What if it's taken from like just under, like that. There. I can just squeeze it in if that's the one I want to go, because that kind of, the colour is just really quite nice, isn't it? Yeah. And do I stitch that on, or do I don't really want to glue it on. The only thing with stitching it on is if I go on, the corners will curl, the edges will curl up, and I really didn't want that. So I may have to fabric glue put some fabric glue on that one, and because that you can still wash it with fabric glue. Once it's sort of had time to cure, it will be fine. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so take that off and take that off, and I'm just going to move that down a bit like that, and that, make sure we got it the right way. That will start there like that. And go like that. So I want to pin that so I know where I want it. Yeah. Yeah, if I was to sew it along here and here, you would probably find these edges, because it's scalloped, will curl up like that, and I really don't want that happening. So I'm going to do it this way, and I've decided when I use my fabric glues now, I'm going to wear a paper, you know, the face masks, you know, like the ones they use in the nail salons and things like that. I'm going to use one of those because it makes me feel sick. It really does. The glue smell, after not having a sense of smell for 2 years and then smelling things like that, it's really quite horrible. So I will be doing that from now on so that I can look after myself. Okay, and it's just with those clear, strong glues. It's not the tacky glue. Tacky glue doesn't really have much of a smell, which is nice. It does have a smell, but it's nowhere near as potent as the other ones. So it's mainly those. Make sure I got that the right way. I could make the straps a little bit shorter, that, you know, it wouldn't hurt, would it? Okay, there we go. There we go. So I will glue that on, and then I'm going to that's the fold of the strap. That will be against the inside of the bag, and I will position that like that, and I will more than likely, I'm not going to try not to catch the ruffle, so I will sew across there, you know, I might do like an X going up, across and down there, and then how long is it? Maybe just a little bit across there underneath the ruffle, but I don't want to catch the ruffle. So that is what I'm going to do to attach those straps, and that is what I was talking about for inside. I just thought I'd show you that. That's just cut to the same size as the bottom of the bag. So I need to empty my SD card. It's flashing, and I will glue that, and I will attach those straps, and then I'll come back and we'll make a flower for the bag. Okay, so that's all done. That's all stitched on nicely, nice and strong. So we'll just pop that to the side for a moment, and I thought I'd make a flower. This is the rest of the top that I cut the ruffle off. This is like, see, that's down the front, that's the armhole there. And I thought I would use this to make a flower. So I'm just trying to want a nice long piece. I kind of want it like that though. A nice big flower. So let's have a look. We should just use the back. So kind of like that. Alright, that should be fine like that. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I cut a nice wide strip. I joined it together, and what I'm going to do is fold it and just do a nice big kind of gathering stitch, because I'm not quite sure how much I'm going to need, so that's why I've just left it quite long until I know. So I will just do a big stitch like that all the way until I think I've got enough. I want a nice big floppy kind of shabby flower, and that's why I'm making it this way. And I'm not too concerned. See how like the fabric isn't exactly on the grain, and that's okay, because that will help to give it like a ruffly kind of look. So I wasn't too concerned about cutting the fabric exactly straight on the grain, because if you get that little bit of warped like this, that warped, see how it's not sitting flat, it's kind of warping. If you get that in your flower, it kind of adds to the effect of the, you know, the softness, ruffliness to it, if that makes any sense at all. Yeah. Looks nice. So I will continue along until I feel that I've got enough. Okay, so I've done the whole lot. Now, just to explain what I mean, can you see how the fabric pulls a bit? Instead of, let me think. Alright, instead of having a piece of fabric, when you have a piece of fabric, you either have the grain going that way or going that way like that. What I have done is, instead of cutting like that, I've kind of cut on a kind of an angle like that. So that was the grain. I've cut like that, which means when one side goes up to the other, it doesn't sit flat. So it leaves ridges. And I have done that before with flowers, and I liked the effect of it. And it's especially good like when you're cutting up clothing, because you don't always have a good, you know, amount of fabric that's got a grain with it. So what happens when you gather it up, it makes it extra poofy because it's not sitting quite straight. So let's have a look here. So what I'm going to do is make it like a double layer kind of flower, like that. So it's got a really nice kind of volume to it. Do you see that? It's quite pretty when it's done like that. And so I'm just going to pull it as tight as I can, and then like stitch the end to stop it from loosening up again. Just leave a little tail on it. Right, now, what kind of flower shall we make here? So that, isn't that pretty? Either way. Whoops. Sorry about that. So I've just got the double ruffle lace like that. I've folded it over and gathered it around, and I am going to join it. I don't want it too tight because it's quite thick, so that's so far. Now we need something wonderful to put in the center of that. And okay, I am going to, I think that will look quite nice on there, just like that. And when I cut the top off, there was some ties. I'm going to hunt those down and use those for the dangles, perhaps with some seam binding as well, and find a centerpiece for the flower, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I will be doing that. I have the rest of that seam binding, and these are the ties. See where I've cut it off? They were the ties for the top, so maybe I will have like, let's have a look, you know, that sort of thing. And an earring piece that's, it's just cut silver on it, and maybe that in the center, like that, and it should be good to go. So I'm going to try to work out, make this flower. So like that. Some more thread. I will just stitch all that on anyway. That's done. Nice and secure. And now let's see if I can pin it on. I'll probably put it upside down or something. Oops. Okay. Oh, I want it about here because that's where I've got the join, like I said before. So I'll just put it there. Oh, that's better. Yeah, that's much better than it's much better than using glue and tying it on. Kind of want that. This is a wet one, so I'm just going to wet it a bit so I can scrunch it, and that will dry. I don't have water in here, so is that it? Yeah. And hopefully that will scrunch up. Oops. Okay, done. Done. And I have ordered some little bag magnets. What I may do, I'm not 100% sure, but I may put a magnet there to keep it, you know, closed, so the top closes. But like I said, I've ordered that. They haven't been delivered as yet. So there we go. I'll have to take some photos. There's my shabby ruffled tote market bag made with beautiful laces from Luscious Laces and thrift store clothing. And there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope the tutorial isn't too long. I think it turned out very pretty though, so like I said, I'll stand it up somewhere once this is dry and take a couple of photos and put it at the end. So thank you so much, and like I said before, if you already have a canvas bag or something, you don't have to make one. I just didn't have one, so and I do like the vintage satin behind there. I think it just adds a nice touch. It's a soft colour. Okay then, thank you for joining me. Bye.